This is Potatoes Gang, and today, very sobering subject: battling growing and pervasive poverty across the land. It's very easy to sound romantic when you talk about some things. You can talk about the sustainable development goals, and it's also super intellectual and all that. But one of the things that I have been fortunate with is that I travel, and I've been across the breadth of this country. And boy, is there poverty in the land. This crushes the dignity of the human person. What shall we do to face head-on this problem of crippling poverty?
Abject poverty is the way the African Development Bank looked at it, and their latest reports indicate that about 150, 160 of our estimated 190 million are living on less than $2 per day. We have grown so badly, growth this time in the reverse direction, that Nigeria is now overtaking India in being the worst capital, where you have poverty.
Absolute poverty in the world, biggest concentration.
People back some 15, 20 years said they were going to be picking food from the dustbin. People nowadays are going to where the agencies have buried rotten chicken, rotten and infected poultry, excavate them. And when you now ask, they say to you, I will die of something in any way. Prof, the truth of the matter is that it's very somber. There is no romanticization in this, and we must begin to look at it very, very, very critically. Otherwise, this crushing poverty will crush the soul of Nigeria.
Prof, you know, in one of your books, Why Nations Are Poor, in your prologue, you painted a scenario, a picture of a big man, you know, who has a big house, fenced, and then he drives out. He joins the poor people. Nobody knows the difference. And Dr. Christopher Kolade also added to that by saying that when he visited Banana Island, he said that if nothing is done about the poverty level, that the masses will come out and go to those buildings, those houses owned by the rich people.
Super rich.
Yeah, super rich. And then drive them out. If they refuse to vacate the building, they pay with their lives. And that was a picture you painted in that prologue to your book. And it's amazing. The number of phone calls I received from people who ordinarily shouldn't be calling me.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
It's disturbing. You know?
And sometimes people call you and they start crying on the phone, and you don't know them. You've not met them before. They start crying.
A woman saw me. There was a traffic a couple of weeks ago, and she knelt down on the road because nobody gave her 4 cars ahead. She came to me. It's like she became desperate. First car, nobody responded. Second car, third car, then the fourth car, me, and she knelt down on the street, begging for something. She had some paper they gave her in the hospital too. I just had the money I had there, I just gave it to her. Immediately, I have not seen her on that road anymore. Since that day, I have not seen her.
So she's not a professional beggar.
No,
she
not.
just got desperate.
Yes. So is it the people in schools? You know, you can't have I was on a television panel with one lawyer. He made a comment. He said, look, the situation in the country today is that you can't even hold an intelligent conversation with a young girl before she turns you to ATM or meal tickets. You know, it has forced our people to begin to do stuff that ordinarily they shouldn't be doing. So something must be done. In 1996 or so, one of the Clintons, I don't remember which one, visited. it was recorded that 40% of Nigerians were living below poverty level. But today, 70-something percent.
Well, going forward, I think we need to go back to our history. How did we get to this bad terminus? And then going forward, I think both private sector and government, we need to have a rethink about our investment model. At the beginning, government was just concerned about governance, which they didn't do also very well. Set up a few enterprises, but there was no real focus on creating jobs. Creating jobs was not in their vocabulary.
And if you are running for public office in America, the first question is jobs. Jobs
So
creation.
it's only now that poverty is hitting us in the face, and mountains of employed people are around the corner, that jobs start coming into our lexicon. So we need to go back to our investment model. If there have been, for the last administration, before Buhari came into office, tried to test that model, which some other economies have tried, and that's using your investment on infrastructure. The thinking was that if federal government and the states and local governments agree to build certain number of houses, because we have a deficit of more than 60 million houses. If you decide to say, okay, every year, every 2 years, all the 3 layers of government will cooperate to put together 1 million buildings.
And that could unleash the economy.
Yes.
It will.
The impact on paint production, on cement production, on galvanized roofing sheets, on nails, on wood, on ceramic, glass, mention it, furniture.
Even employing the laborers,
the tilers, the bricklayers, it will throw up millions of jobs across the country.
While that is going, I think we need a holistic approach to the whole of this. My understanding from Federal Bureau of Statistics is the population keeps on going at about 3-4%. At a GDP growth is now strong to about 1.92, less than 2%. I think we need a holistic policy to stop at the gates and then look at our population expansion. It has to come. That's from that angle. I agree with you, Rashid. We also need to be seen as policymakers, politicians, those who are the helm of affairs, that we are leading by example. You see, a situation where the poor, I am told, like the lady that you said came to nail on the streets, I'm even told that some of the domestic helps that you have genuinely acquired, they just have this rabid hatred. Your children are going to school, they have gone to whatever it is, they are not going to school. So that hatred is such that the next thing that they'll be thinking is how to harm you, how to put some onto what things in your food, and to hell and go. So we need this reorientation. We need government that will be able to come and speak with people at all levels, from the local government, state government, federal government. The orientation ministry should speak more to the people, because the way things are going,
so much talking to people or doing something that changes the condition.
And do something.
Yeah, but
and do something.
In as much as this, I expect that 2019 election, this poverty thing should be a campaign issue. Prof, I don't know if you still remember, many years ago you traveled to on a study tour of Southeast Asia, Malaysia and some other countries. You came back, you organized, some of us were in the class at the LBS, and you spoke, and one prediction that you made, that the way things are going in the world, that in the past, that political decisions used to determine economic outcomes. But today, the way things were going then and still going now, that economic decisions will determine political outcomes. We saw that happen in Italy. You predicted it well. In Greece, it happened. And some other countries. But it's in Nigeria that this refused to. It's not even a campaign issue. So we need to find a way of bringing it up to become a campaign issue. How do we reduce poverty in the land?
Is it because we have a dearth of knowledge? We have people who can think through this. However, unfortunately, they are the minor voices that are heard.
This is a very, really serious subject. Time is running. And let's go out, listen to some of the people out there. When we come back, let's prescribe some clear things, because this is a ticking time bomb. I've always talked about the revenge of the poor. It's probably on us.
When the government is saying that way, it will be reduced. We don't want people that are just striving to get there.
It's obvious that Nigerians are living in poverty. An average Nigerian could barely afford maybe 3 square meal. And for me, I would say this is because of the fact that our government are actually not doing the right thing. The right thing in the sense that, one, we have failed to diversify our economy. We are still relying on crude oil at this stage. And secondly, we tend to borrow more from other countries, which for me is not right. You can't continue to be a detour and expect to move forward as a nation. And thirdly, I think there should be a review of what our executives and legislatures, what they earn. There should be a review so that we can actually, if there's a cut from their salary, that could be used to diversify the economy and even probably help youths in the era of entrepreneurship.
You know, Nigeria, we are not as poor as we think we are. It's because we mismanage everything that we have. So we have everything. We have the good soil. We have the money, but we have the brain. We are all intelligent. So the youth, you just ignore what the country will do for us and just focus on what we can do for ourselves. Because being poor and all this poverty issues that is going on around the world is the mind take. So let's just all agree that we should make the world a better place. And the little things that we have, the little knowledge that we have, should just focus on it, build it. And after that, we'll just forget about the fact that poverty rate is growing in Nigeria.
So this is the pedagogy of the determined. Our teaching approach in CVL is to ask everybody who has come to learn something about leadership to ask themselves what kind of world, what kind of company, what kind of society they'd like to see, and what kind of knowledge will equip them to provide the kind of sacrificial giving of self for the good of others that will lead to the synergy that will enable them get to that destination. So this is the very base model of how we teach leadership at the CVL.
Bane of the crisis in our economy is lack of positive leadership. CVL is working assiduously to impact other stakeholders to ensure that we get the leadership question right.
Leadership affects every aspect of our lives, from our homes to our places of work to our society as a whole.
What is special about CVL Leadership Management Training? Our focus is solely on leadership and how it helps performance. Our unique selling point is based on our teaching method for 3 levels of staff in organizations.
We encourage you to register your employees for one of our training programs today.
We're back. The statistics are obviously horrifying. One of us already mentioned the Brookings study that suggested that we've overtaken India as the biggest concentration of the absolute poor on the planet Earth. There is a statistic coming out of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which suggests that in a few years, 40% of the poorest people on Earth will live in 2 countries, Nigeria and Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo. We see so much prosperity in the hands of a few in this same country where there is so much poverty.
Yeah, but you find these 2 countries you mentioned are amongst the richest in
resources. Yes.
25% of natural resources in the world are in Nigeria. and a greater percentage also in the Congo, DRC or something. Okay, so, and why are we living, in the midst of plenty? Because the way Nigeria is structured, it's not structured to create prosperity for the nation itself, for individuals and all that. Wealth are in the hands of private, in the private hands, not in the public. We don't have much of a public wealth. And it's the public wealth that will go around.
But isn't the problem more that in Nigeria, there is public capture of wealth, which if it's released, can be an accelerator.
Exactly.
And so the public sector corners oil resources, and individuals privatize that. And because they privatize it, they don't use it in a productive way. The brilliant thing about capital is that those who deploy capital usually create multipliers that create the jobs.
Yes.
But in Nigeria, you see very rich people who have employed no people at all, or just a few for their personal comfort, because they're not wealth creators. They're actually rent seekers that just have collected from the states.
I don't know how to say it, but for oil wells to be given to individuals instead of states, states should be the ones to be giving oil blocks, and they give in the hands of individuals, and these individuals cannot create more than 5,000, jobs.
It comes back to my prescription part. What should we do? I think beyond lip service, we should enthrone philosopher kings that have capacity, that have character, that have compassion, and who will be able to, whether you look at them as quasi dictators, a la Kwon Yung and co, who will be able to deliver the greatest good to the greater number of our people. Unfortunately, our structure, whether you look at it from restructuring of the mind or restructuring of our economy, is such that we don't all look with the same vision. To look at Nigeria as a country, others before myself. At one point in time, we had people who cornered so much wealth and they took it outside the shores of this country.
And they died, of course.
They died, of course, and then that wealth benefited
to those people.
So I think Professor Lambo perhaps was right that something needs to be checked with us. Our thinking process, our medulla needs to be checked before we get into public
I think it's
office.
partly education. I think that, if you have the education, I don't mean a certification. You can have a certificate and not be educated. Because if you are educated, you will realize that that kind of money that you have taken from, say, the public till, that, and you've put away somewhere, somehow doesn't profit you. You see, look at these people, they live very miserably with all the money that they've put away. But going to real practical policy kinds of choices that need to be made. You look at the situation today in Nigeria where infrastructure is very, very poor. You need infrastructure to open up so that small entrepreneurs, individuals who work, whether taking de facto endowments of all the local governments into account, but you need infrastructure to drive it. Where is the capital to go into infrastructure? Somehow it is in the heads of many people who go into public office in Nigeria that unless they get their FAC account and put X million and use to tie this road from there to there, that nothing. Capital is there, hugely available in the world today. The French writer Thomas Piketty, the economist, the new Marx as they call him, writes on capital and inequality. It shows how globalization has allowed a huge amount of capital to become concentrated. You have to have a certain kind of behavior to attract that capital.
That's right.
Why is our system not working with people who know and who have access and who can get to those places and attract that capital? Look, capital is flowing out of Nigeria instead of coming into Nigeria. The whole of Africa is attracting investment capital of about $42 or so billion a year. The whole of Africa. That small, tiny island on the Straits of Malacca called Singapore is attracting $65 billion in capital a year. What is wrong with us?
What is wrong with us, of course, is the choice of leaders we've allowed to evolve in our environment. If you have tiny minds come on board, they will think little, and they will not see this type of scenario you have painted.
Another thing is
For anybody to have a global broad view, to be able to attract the type of capital we are talking about, they need more than the domestic education. They need the world view.
Back to my
Yes.
concept of philosopher kings. You just reeled out examples. How did you get to know that?
My studies.
Yes, you have been studious. How many of the leaders that we have from the local government to states, due respect, to presidency, can come out and debate and have a robust debate? Let's just first of all debate about it. People, they are lost. Yet, these are the people that control the lever of power. These are the people who believe in prebendalism. They would rather want to keep majority of our people poor and hand them stomach infrastructure at the expense of capital. And yet our people are lapping it. I also feel that apart from leadership, we have a problem of followership. Have been too laid back, and it's time we need to.
the policy choices that we make or we have made in the past is also a challenge to us. Now, moving forward, I think we need to look at our, both monetary and fiscal policy together. Look at them and see how we can. The monetary policy side are more focused on inflation targeting. And I've always said, look, forget about this inflation targeting. Let's look at how do we, using appreciative inquiry, how do we begin to increase the domestic production? What can we do to produce more, to import less?
Unfortunately, time again is a big problem, and we have to go. But you make a very important point about industrial policy and how to go. And interesting, one of the ideas that I've talked about, worked on for many years, picked up by a few people around here, but has been put in a very nice way by the Chinese economist who served at the World Bank not long ago as chief economist, Justin Lin. He talks about building on your factor endowments, essentially, and having industrial policy, not general industrial policy, but one that protects an area in which you can become globally competitive. And the idea of latent comparative advantage as the basis for driving growth and development and the investments that will come. But somehow we seem to proceed without some clarity in strategy. So again, we've got to go, but if we're going to end this poverty, we need very clear-minded industrial policy, targeting jobs for certain stream of people and not just growth numbers, because people count. Governing is about people. Well, I've got to go, but you can follow our conversation going forward on the various social media handles that you see on the screen, and I hope that together we can find problems to the challenge of growing poverty. Because if the poor are out there awake, you cannot sleep.